All right, everybody, welcome to mock interview number 95, featuring a customer success manager. My name is Albert Chen. I'm the founder of Albert's List, and with me is my co-host, Corey Hiramoto of CareerShakers.com. And we are here to do our weekly mock interview featuring Aza, who is a customer success manager interviewing here at MailChimp. The framework of this webinar is fairly simple if this is your first time or your 95th. We will ask questions, Aza will answer, and then Corey will give feedback. You, as the audience member, can also provide your own feedback as well, and also choose to ask questions within the webinar chat. All right, Corey, over to you.
Thank you, everyone, for having us. We appreciate it. And we are taking volunteers. If anyone else would like to volunteer to get some feedback and practice for an interview, it doesn't even have to be for an interview that you have scheduled. It just could be for general practice. All we need is your resume and then a job description that you want to practice on. And if you want more like interviewing tips and things, please do check out the Albert's List YouTube channel as well as my YouTube channel. It's Career Shakers, all one word. And before we actually dive in, why don't we give Aza an opportunity and platform to kind of introduce herself in a non-interview setting, talk about the kind of roles that she's looking for, kind of companies that she wants to work for. And then if anyone in the audience is impressed by her background, please reach out because she is interviewing for roles right now. So Aza, take the floor.
Hi everyone, I'm Azza. I'm currently based in the UK, but open to kind of relocating in terms of where I'm based, very much flexible in that front. I have experience in customer success, account management. So I'm looking for something in that realm, but open to also work on partnerships and uh, work on seeking a role in a more mission-driven organization. So yeah, that's essentially what I'm looking for, interested in working on something meaningful and potentially with social impact as well. So yeah, in my free time, I also volunteer for um, a 501(c)(3) called the Sudanese Diaspora Network as well. So I guess I can speak to that in a more official interview. So yeah.
Perfect. And we want to give her double the shout outs because it's currently 1 a.m. over there in London. And so she's fully dedicated to improving her interviewing skills. So please, everyone, give her an extra round of applause for all of her hard work and dedication. We really love it and appreciate it. And the cool thing is, so today we're going to be practicing a customer success manager role for MailChimp. But the cool thing is, she already did the interview. So we actually get a little bit of insight. We'll be practicing some of the specific questions that she had gotten in the interview, as well as some other ones that I had crafted up on my own. And then she can get feedback kind of on some of the questions that she's already answered. And then we can try out some new ones as well. And then how the typical session works is I'm going to pretend to be the interviewer. So I'll ask an interview question. She will answer. I usually don't give hints or anything like that unless you get absolutely stuck. So we'll treat it like a real interview. And then after the end of each question, I give my feedback, some things that were really positive, and then some areas of potential improvement. And then that way, anyone in the audience, if you get similar questions or if you're just practicing for a similar question, you can kind of figure out where to adjust and tailor your answers as needed. But of course, we love audience participation, and Zoom has an awesome chat function. So if there is a question that you want us to practice, or just have a question in general for me as or Albert, throw that in the chat as well. Okay, are you ready to get started?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so first interview question. Can you tell me what is your approach to being a successful CSM?
Yes. So in terms of customer success, I feel like one of my favorite aspects of it is essentially the importance of putting the customer at the heart. And so being able to really create meaningful relationships, driving value and generating and demonstrating the value of products, increasing product adoption and engagement. And to be a good customer success manager, you have to be that customer advocate and be able to drive innovation and change within the organization at in a more holistic level. So being able to kind of work on being that change maker within the organization, but also identify business outcomes that each successful each account would need to kind of create a successful plan and be able to address the various different aspects that um, each potential account would need. So whether that be creating a health score and then thinking about a needs analysis, so being able to kind of um, think about the various different ways in which there's a set roadmap for success in that sense.
Great. Do you have an example?
Yeah, so I can give you an example of my most recent role while I was working at um, as a customer success manager at People of Color in Tech, which is a tech startup. I was essentially managing complex high revenue accounts with industry leaders such as Cisco. Actually, Intuit was one of my clients at the time. And so some of the key highlights of that would be was essentially being the main point of contact, but also working to essentially uh, create an in-depth experience from onboarding to renewal and setting those key objectives and um, setting initial discovery calls and managing the relationship from start to renewal and trying to look for expansion opportunities within that as well.
Okay, cool. So we'll end the question here. Is this a very similar answer to what you gave in the interview?
Yeah, something along these lines, yes.
Okay. And then did you provide an example during the interview as well?
This interview was a couple weeks ago, so it's not like as fresh in my mind. But yeah, I think I answered something along these lines, if that makes sense.
Okay, awesome. All right. So for feedback, I would say you give a very good overview of like the role definition of a customer success manager. But I think you also need to go a little bit beyond that, right? Like
Hmm.
I think, and also one of the things that MailChimp put in their job description is about taking a consultative approach, which I think, every job description uses as well for CSM. But you want to make sure you also use the same words that the companies are using. And I think consultative is like one of the industry standard ones for CSM. And then just make sure you also include an example without me having to ask you about it, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of like the difference between showing versus telling. And
Yeah.
when you're giving your example, you want to make sure that you're able to talk about what you specifically did and then the outcome or the impact of it. So
Hmm.
you talked about who your clients were, right? Cisco, Intuit, and then you talked about how you like to take, how you make sure that they feel valued, etc. But I have no idea what you actually did, right? Like, what's the
Hmm.
value you added? What problems did you help them solve? How did that help, your company? Did you like get a big renewal? I don't know, did they give you, valuable feedback that led to like a product improvement? Did you drive some kind of process change? Right? Like you also have to tell me about the impact of your work because that's what really makes it an example.
Yeah, understood. Okay. I guess so. In terms of like the what would make it better is to kind of talk about like I guess specific wins with customer success as a whole, or
Hmm. Yep.
okay.
Yep. So basically in how you kind of gave your general introduction
Hmm.
um, to answer the question where you were defining the role of a CSM,
Hmm.
ideally you want to give me at least one example, super short example of a time where you were able to do that.
Hmm.
Now, it shouldn't be like it doesn't need to be one example for every single thing because then your answer would be way too long. But it should be at least one or two very powerful examples. So maybe there's an example that can demonstrate everything all at one time.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
Right. So it should be like my approach to customer success is that I like to take a truly consultative approach. I like to be the voice of the customer, want to make sure I'm able to truly anticipate their needs and be proactive. I've also had to manage very complex accounts, like at my last company, I had large enterprise accounts like Cisco as well as Intuit. And some of the problems that I've helped my clients deal with when I first onboarded was X, Y, and Z. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm good at customer success because I'm the voice of the customer. You can say some of the problems that I helped them with was X, Y,
Hmm.
and Z. which
Okay.
shows me you are the voice of the customer, right? Without you
Hmm.
having to say you're the voice of the customer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then at the end, I was able to help Cisco do blah, blah, blah. Or Cisco's feedback actually ended up driving some of our product roadmap, which I worked very closely with product marketing as well as our engineering team to ensure, successful rollout, blah, 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 blah.
Hmm. Okay.
Right.
No, that makes sense.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Mhm. Yep. Check the chat. Okay, chat is good. Chat is good here. Okay. Let's try one of my questions. So, can you tell me about a time when you took a consultative approach with one of your customers or clients, and what was the outcome?
Yes. So, a specific time around when I was specifically with people of color in tech, managing a HR solution, I noticed that one of the accounts was running low with applications, and also their just general engagement with the platform was not necessarily as high as other accounts. So with that, I essentially kind of take more of a proactive approach to kind of be able to kind of essentially hypothesize um, what their essential issue would be um, around the platform, and then think around, okay, so how can um, I essentially work with various different organizations to think around how can we um, create more of an impact or a change in that perspective. So being able to understand that one of their set KPIs was to essentially have um, higher um, applicants from that perspective, and then be able to um, drive change in that sense. So being able to work to streamline the application flow, and then also work to essentially be able to um, create more of a more engagement from that perspective. So think about how that kind of relates to their general goals. So being able to um, yeah, essentially notice that because they weren't receiving as much um, engagement from the community perspective, thinking more broadly around how to. Um, okay, I feel like I'm getting lost in this example. Sorry to pause. But
It's
yeah.
okay. Keep going. Finish it.
Okay. So with that is essentially uh sorry, I might need like a second to just rethink this so that it's
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
so that it comes across as uh just uh yeah, a little bit more clear. Um so just if you just okay. Um
Do you want me to repeat the question? Would that help?
yeah, sure.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you took a consultative approach with one of your customers or clients, and then what was the outcome of that?
Yeah, so by understanding one of my account's core business objectives was to drive their application figures. I noticed that their usage was low, and according to their set goals, I wanted to think proactively and diagnose the issue. So I essentially reached out to some of the compare this to some of the other partners that were more successful with their higher applications, and then essentially try to problem solve on their behalf how to create more engagement with their account. So I logged on to the website as a potential community user, and then also had um, picked up various different feedback from that perspective. So being able to see um, various different ways in which things can be amended to improve their application rates. So collected additional metrics, and um, noticed that I noticed that there were quite a few people who were signing up but not essentially completing their profile. So worked with the product team on improving sign up flow, and then also um, added an additional metric on people who click the link versus people who actually apply. So that seems like a more positive figure all around. And that increased the number of potential applications by 60%. So that was something that they were really happy with, and that actually improved just their general health score and um, their them wanting to stay on with Pocket.
Okay, much better. The second time was significantly better. Well done.
Yeah, I was just like, sorry, maybe I'm a little nervous, but yeah, it's fine.
That's okay. This is all for practice, and it's also 1 in the morning. So these are not true interview conditions. So that's totally fine. So my original feedback was basically going to be, and you actually have a trigger word. Every time you say the word essentially, you need to
Hmm.
go deeper and tell me how, or give me like some specifics. So in your first version of it, you were saying essentially I was putting together an hypothesis to figure out why they weren't using the platform. And essentially it came down to the fact that we didn't have enough applications. Essentially it was right. So every time you said essentially, I was like, okay, but then tell me how you fixed that or how you figured that out
Hmm.
or what you did with that information, how that helped you arrive at helping your client or customer get the most out of your platform. Now, the second
Hmm.
version of it, you actually got rid of all your essentially, and you actually gave me the specific how and the what and the why, which was excellent.
Hmm. Okay, understood. Yeah.
So, so
Mhm.
just build up that habit of whatever you did to give me that second answer, because that second one was great.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let me check the chat. Yeah, chat's all love right now, all love and support. Okay, let's try one of the other questions that she actually got in her real MailChimp interview. So, as you know, we are a data-driven company. So we expect all of our CSMs to be data-driven and outcome-driven. So tell me, how do you ensure that you're able to hit your metrics and your goals for your customers?
Yeah, so in terms of how my general approach with customer success would essentially be to create a roadmap with set um, milestones. So starting initially with a essentially a pre-agreement with the customer on the various different ways in which we can kind of set various different milestones and think more proactively to kind of get to that um, next step. So being able to think about um, how we can essentially um, uh, take a specific um, uh, like have those like set milestones in place. Um, and then I guess when it comes to the like the data aspect, I think it's definitely important to have more of a data-driven mindset and think more proactively around um, just being able to uh, create more like data-driven insights in that sense. Um, and yeah, sorry guys, I'm kind of getting stressed, but yeah, it's fine.
Okay, what are these milestones that you try to set with your customers?
Hmm. Um, so in terms of the milestones, so just being able to think around just the like trying to think around what they're trying to really understand what their objectives are. So what they're trying to get out of the project, and then by understanding what how we can essentially I can help them with deriving value from the product in that sense. So kind of working with them um, to understand what they're mainly like looking for, and then how to yeah, like work with them in that perspective.
And then you also talked about having a data-driven approach. So what are some of the key KPIs and metrics that you think would be valuable for some of your customers? And which ones do you like to focus on the most?
Um, so yeah, in terms of uh the KPIs that were uh set in my most recent role, just essentially being able to um understand like essentially the adoption of the product from an internal perspective. So making sure that within an organization, it's not uh, just the uh, uh, key key contacts or stakeholders that are we're exposed to from a client perspective, but that there's more adoption um, throughout the organization, that people are aware of this particular um, account and what we do. So being able to kind of drive that awareness piece of essentially what um, yeah, what our awareness is, awareness of the product within the organization. So yeah, that's kind of an example within that.
Okay, sounds good. So, was this similar to the answer that you gave in the interview?
Um, so the um the question was more like um how do you make sure that you kind of like meet a set metric, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I guess probably not, but I think maybe I'm just like I feel like I'm drawing a blank right now, but yeah, but it's okay.
That's okay. So it's basically the same question, right? Like if I had asked you, how do you achieve your metrics, right?
Hmm.
It's the same question as we're very outcome and data driven. How do you achieve the target goals that you have set for yourself, or how do you
Hmm.
use data to drive to your outcomes, right? Because
Hmm.
actually, technically, my question was easier because I led you there, right? I was basically hinting that you have to use data to drive your outcomes, and that's how you're going to measure and monitor your success for both your clients and yourself.
Hmm.
And
No,
so
that's true.
either way, you do have to give me a data-driven response
Hmm.
about what are the key metrics and KPIs that you're going to be monitoring. Now, I think customer adoption for sure is definitely going to be one of your key metrics. Absolutely. But you also need to give me stuff beyond that, right? Because that's like the super obvious, easy one
Okay.
is
Yeah.
customer adoption. And then also
Hmm.
you just kept talking about customer awareness. But how do you measure that, right? What is the KPI that you can use to monitor that within
Hmm.
the company? Um, and also according to the job description, they said that you're going to be managing between 20 and I think it said 80 accounts,
Hmm.
right? And so my first thought was the scalability issue. Is Asla going to be able to sit down and build a customized plan for 80 accounts and do this, right?
Hmm.
I don't know if that's necessarily feasible. And then when you're talking about setting goals with your clients, I love that, right? But then when I ask you, okay, what are some of the goals that you're going to be looking for? And you're like, well, I'm going to sit down with them and figure out what they want to get out of this product. But
Hmm.
they already bought from you, right? They're already a customer. So they already have an idea of what they want to get out of this product.
Hmm.
So why do you need to sit down with them and ask them what they want to get out of the product,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's more setting what goals like they'd like to achieve with the product versus a why. But yeah, maybe I
Mhm.
worded that. Yeah. Could word that better for sure.
And then even when you're sitting down with them, right, and you're trying to figure out what the goals are, you should have some suggestions, and there should be some KPIs and metrics that you should be leaning them towards, right,
Hmm.
to help guide them in terms of what are true KPIs or measurements of success in terms of utilizing our product, and or what makes your job easier too, right? You don't want
Hmm.
to give your customers free reign to pick whatever metric they want to define success, because what if your company actually can't track that, right? Or what if whatever metric they choose actually is counterintuitive to like
Hmm.
your goals, right?
Hmm.
Um, so you also want to be able to kind of drive that conversation as well.
Hmm.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. You're doing great, by the way. Keep it up.
No, it's okay.
All right, let's try a hypothetical. So
Hmm.
let's just pretend I hired you here at MailChimp, and so you're one of our CSMs, and you're assigned to one of our medium-sized accounts. And you're doing your quarterly, monthly check-in, whatever cadence you have, and they mention to you that they're not considering renewing with us when their contract is up at the end of the year. How would you handle this?
Um, so essentially, if there was a set objection with, looking to, if customer mentions that they're looking to potentially churn, the uh, first piece is to really think around what the main objection is, whether that's something that's price related, whether that's something that could be looked at from like whether that be could be like offering a discount or thinking about services from that perspective. If it's something that's more around the project, whether it could be something that could be looping in the product team from that perspective. Um, just thinking more around really understanding what the crux of the issue is, and then from that, being able to yeah, essentially work on uh, resolving that problem for them and uh, rebuilding that trust with the company and making them feel really listened to and heard, so that they feel as though um, yeah, there is that uh, um, that their account matters essentially to the company, so that there isn't that feeling of uh yeah, that they're kind of being that they're being prioritized. So being able to show them that in that sense.
Okay. And so how do you figure out what their true problem is, besides just asking them? Because as we know, sometimes our customers don't even know what their true
Hmm.
problem or pain point is. So how do you help them figure out what it is?
So the uh, the key point is to essentially try to set up a initial meeting to be able to uh, have that conversation around what the issue is, but then potentially look at similar sized accounts and any issues that they've been facing. So being able to use them as potential examples of issues that might be consistently uh, coming up in that sense. So having it as a key agenda item and bringing in relevant people from the product team, and then understanding um, like what's valuable to the client and if there's any set feature requests, being able to make a shared uh, document with those requests to share within the team internally um, to raise the profile of those issues.
Great. Now, as we all know, we would love to hopefully prevent these types of issues from happening. So,
Mhm.
what are some of the things you do in order to be proactive and so that we either A, aren't blindsided by our customers wanting to terminate, or ensure that they don't want to terminate at all?
Mhm. So yeah, 100%. I think the main way that I deal with managing various different accounts is to essentially think around um, how to create a set and detailed um, timeline with those milestones that the customer is also aware of. So being able to deliver impact from the start. So being able to um, set that um, set that up from an initial standpoint, and then also be able to um, yeah, just think around the various different um, from like an onboarding perspective, have those best practices of how to use the software initially, and then customize um, have a more customized approach with that, and create more have more strategic um, guidance and consultation, and be able to um, have that quick turnaround of issue resolution as well, um, and track the general performance of the um, and create various different reporting mechanisms within that as well.
Okay, good. So we'll move on to the feedback section here. All right, so the things that she did very good for these hypothetical questions, because it's a broad, general problem statement, right? Like, customer wants to cancel, how do you handle this? Obviously, she has no information about the customer because this is totally imaginary and she doesn't work at MailChimp yet. And so normally what people do as a mistake is they go, well, I would want to talk to the customer and figure out why they're leaving. And then they just stop talking, right? Which makes sense because you have no idea why the customer wants to leave. This is an imaginary situation. So the one thing that Azza did that's very good is you just have to now start to hypothesize and name reasons why typically customers do not want to renew. And so number one was price, and then she talked about how she would handle that objection. And then number two would be dissatisfaction with the product itself. And then so she talked about how she'd bring in engineering, work on updating the product roadmap, making sure that they know how to utilize and get the most out of the product and all the features, demonstrate the value, etc. So that is definitely something that everybody should do whenever you get a hypothetical question, is try to take some guesses as to why something may be happening. And then you get to show off your knowledge as to all of your experience as to how you kind of handled these situations in the past. Now, when I had asked you how you help your customers figure out what the core problems were, or the root cause, you gave me a super excellent answer, right? You talked about how you use data, how you pull and you look at customer profiles of similar sizes, right, to benchmark and provide information. That was excellent, absolutely excellent. So that should be that should be as a part of your original answer for sure.
Mhm.
And then I asked you how you would prevent these. That should also be an initial part of your answer as well, right? Because obviously you don't even want to be in this situation as a CSM, right?
Mhm.
And so make sure you have that element proactively covered as well. But everything else was very good.
Okay, great.
Oh, a great question from someone in the audience. So I asked a hypothetical question. And so my question was, imagine you worked here at MailChimp and you had a customer trying to cancel and leave. So they're asking you how you would handle this at MailChimp, which means you should not say, oh yeah, let me tell you about how I did this at a company that's not MailChimp, right?
Mhm.
Because now they're not going to learn anything. Because unless your company is MailChimp, it's going to be different, right? Maybe your product is slightly different. Maybe your customer base is slightly different. Maybe the roadmap is slightly different. The features are slightly different, right? So you can't go back to a previous example, because if they wanted to know that, they would have just asked you. They would have said, tell me about a time when a customer was going to cancel their contract and how you handled it. But they're not. They're asking you, what would you do if you worked here?
Mhm.
Which is a much harder and honestly much better question, because now I get to see if you really know your stuff. So you should
Mhm.
not share an example of a time where you did this in the past.
Mhm.
But I know it's very, very tempting to actually go ahead and try and do that, because
Yeah.
you're all practicing your stories and all those things. So just make sure you do what Azza did and just talk about what you would do it for them. Okay, next question. So for our CSM roles here, you're going to be given a mixture of new accounts and some of our existing legacy accounts. And so how do you change your approach, or I should say, how do you work with these two different types of customers, our net new and our legacy customers?
So, uh, yeah, so with working on new customers, it was definitely around setting that initial like uh foundation of trust and building up that relationship and setting and understanding their key outcomes and being able to demonstrate impact and success in that sense. So being able to um, think around, um, yeah, just essentially what they'd, um, how they'd like to make the best use of the product, and if there's anything um, that would be helpful for their team, if there would be initial sessions to have as much like members of their team kind of use the product and how that can demonstrate value to like their senior um, stakeholders. That would also be um, something that is worth bearing in mind. And then when it comes to legacy customers, um, there might be more set processes with that as well. So being able to um, think around if there's any potential new ways of doing things. So is that essentially being able to get up to speed quickly on what's been done and learning like the end-to-end processes from that perspective and being able to um, execute in that sense. But many times uh, when managing accounts, there can be changes even within, let's say, a legacy account. There could be a change in um, the client contact, which could be a trigger point for potential like, renewal as well. So while I was working with Barboni Strategies, I was managing um, various different accounts for McKinsey and Company. So that was working with high profile stakeholders and senior partners. And um, one of the accounts at the time was in a more regimented um, industry, which is banking. So there's a lot of like red tape and risk around what can be said and limitations around the product as a whole, their usage of it. So with this new person that came on board, they wanted to make an impact from the start. So they wanted to change a lot of things around the way things are done. And so they I essentially had to be able to identify the themes of concern that kept coming up, and then essentially bring that back to this team to rally and regroup with them, and then be able to um, come back to that partner, and then got to the point where I was posting directly on their behalf, and so it really impacted the approval rates. So that process was really beneficial for all parties involved, and yeah, it got to the point of direct posts, which kind of demonstrates the level of operation there. But yeah.
Okay. And what does direct post mean?
So I was essentially posting on behalf of this senior partner, so posting onto their uh, Mackenzie uh, website, and then also some of their personal accounts as well,
For what?
for thought leadership pieces.
Which is what your software does normally or something?
So just helping like set up like LinkedIn like campaigns in that sense. So that was like it was one of the services of the agency. So that was more of an account management role versus that role wasn't solution focused, if that makes sense.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. Cool, cool. All right. So this is another tricky question because it's kind of like a hypothetical, right? Which was, how do you modify your approach for legacy versus net new customers. I think on the net new side, I would have loved to know how, right? You were like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if it's a new customer, I'll sit down and figure out what your goals are, and then I'll work with you to, accomplish those goals, and then I'll build your trust, right? But again,
Mm-hmm.
what are the goals? How would you help
Mm-hmm.
build trust, right? It's easy to say, oh, yeah, I'll build their trust.
Yeah.
But your secret sauce here, right, is like how do you uniquely build trust?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to think about, okay, what are all the other CSMs going to say? They're all going to say that we want to build trust with new customers. I'll do that by making sure we fulfill on the SOW and the terms outlined in our contract. I'll also make sure that they have trainings and they know how to best utilize our product and they get the most out of it. That's what
Mm-hmm.
every CSM is going to say, right? I've interviewed like 5 or 10 of them, and all of you will say the exact same thing. So then, what else is unique, right? What's unique about your approach to help really build trust with new customers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then for the second piece, I actually really like your second piece. It was very good in terms of how you alter your approach. The example you gave actually was excellent and unique. You also talked about how whenever there's a new designated point of contact, even with existing customers, that creates a potential churn opportunity. I love that, right? I haven't like no one's pointed that one out before. So those were excellent. The only thing I would add there is like, what did you do about it? Like, is there a time where there was a new, I don't know, CTO appointed and they were doing an audit of all of the softwares that they have, and then they were like, oh, well, I don't like this one. And so but you proactively, I don't know, address that, or you do
Mm-hmm.
something unique, right? Or I don't know, you have to do that whole build trust thing that you do, etc. So, yeah, overall, very, very good answer. Very, very good answer. Okay. Oh yes, and then I guess we can do one of the other questions from your MailChimp interview, which was I think it was something along the lines of, okay, so what is a unique? Yeah, we'll get into that one afterwards. So I believe you got something along this line of questioning in your interview, which was, can you tell me about like the current number of accounts and size of accounts that you currently manage as a?
Yes, so at People of Color in Tech, I was managing around 20 enterprise partnerships and then 30 media sales leads as well. So thinking around um, being able to uh, close from some sponsorships, which was essentially also part of the role. Was less customer success focused, but also um, uh, managing customers through the sales process as well.
Okay, and is that the answer you gave in the interview?
Something along those lines, yeah.
Okay, okay. Um, so for this one, they're trying to. Well, actually, I'll flip it. I'll flip it around. What do you think they want to hear when you answer this question?
Uh, Kind of maybe like us just to understand like how many customers you're able to sustain at the same time.
Yeah, but what else? Because that was the question itself, right? Was like how many accounts do you manage? So
Mhm.
beyond that, what do you think they want to hear from you?
Um, Maybe how those accounts are managed.
What does that mean?
Uh, Maybe like just some understanding of like the workflow with that. Like
Uh-huh.
how those clients are managed on a day-to-day process from a process perspective, potentially.
Okay. 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 Okay.
So
Did you talk about that?
I didn't know. I just
Okay.
gave the figures. So
That's
yeah.
okay. That's
Hmm.
okay. What else do you think they would want to know? Like, why would they ask you how many accounts and what kind of accounts do you manage?
Um, just to kind of see the range where I've kind of previously worked and what I'm comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
based on my experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you know what they are looking to hire for in this role?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Did what you say line up with what they are trying to hire for this role?
Uh, Not particularly, but it was honest. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
I appreciate the honesty. Yep. Yep. I appreciate the honesty. Right. And so for this type of question, it's all about relevance, right? I'm asking you because I need to see if you have already done it is exactly that I need. If not, how are you going to address the gaps for me?
Mm-hmm.
So being honest is fine, but you need to also recognize that if you are being honest and it doesn't match 100%, you need to add other stuff to it to alleviate my concerns. And so now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I haven't talked to the hiring manager; I was not there. But based on the job description, you're going to have existing and net new accounts, and you're going to have somewhere between 20 and 80 accounts. So I'm assuming they're all not all going to be enterprise. I don't know how their CSMs are split up, but
Mm-hmm.
my assumption is at most you're not fully enterprise, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
probably either a mixture of enterprise and mid-market, or you're entirely mid-market SMB, because 80 accounts is crazy high,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so right off the bat, like that tells me that they want to know that you're comfortable handling a large volume of accounts, a mixture of new and existing. And they also want to see like, okay, how complex are your accounts? You know, because sometimes they're just like you can have 80 accounts, but if they're all super easy, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you sell a premium, you sell a premium, you sell a premium product already. Your churn rate is super low, right? There's not a lot of new features that get rolled out. You know, like if you already monopolize the market, you can manage 80 accounts super easy. That's not complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
So give me a sense of like, okay, what's the level of complexity of your accounts? X, Y, and Z, right? There's so many different layers you can go through just to answer the question, what kind of accounts do you manage today?
Mm-hmm.
And if you know that they're looking for potentially high volume, and you can be honest, right? If you want to, you can just say like, yeah, right now I manage 20, but they're all enterprise accounts. They're super complex though. Let me tell
Mm-hmm.
you why they're complex, right? These are complex accounts because blah 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 blah, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I had to handle more accounts, if they were less complex, this would be a walk in the park, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines. Or you can go with the route of right now I only manage 20 accounts, but they're enterprise and they're super complex. But in addition to my enterprise accounts, I also have this additional, you can call it like AE work where
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for delivering X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. So even though I only have 20 assigned CSM accounts, I actually have a broader scope where I'm actually juggling X, Y, and Z, right? And I can handle, so if I was 100% CSM, I could probably handle the equivalent of 60 individual accounts.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that makes
So
sense.
there's
Yeah.
all these layers of depth that you can go through, which would alleviate any of my concerns that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's on the technology side, right? Which is like, okay, well, maybe Asa has managed 20 to 80 accounts. Maybe she's done a mixture of enterprise, mid-market, SMB. Cool. Check, check, check. Okay, but our technology stack is totally different, right? Or maybe you don't even work in tech. And maybe that's my big concern is you're a
Mm-hmm.
CSM for a non-tech product,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how does that translate for me? So if possible, and this is one of the more advanced things too, right? But that's why we're here. We all want to help each other learn and grow. Is if possible, try to dissect the role first and reverse engineer it out, and then you'll be able to give super good answers that hit exactly what they're looking for questions like these.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
No, yeah, no, super helpful.
Cool. And then someone was asking in here, what is a unique way to build trust with your customers? What do you think, Eza? What's a unique way to build trust?
Uh, I think what underpins building trust is following through with uh, client promises that and trying to essentially show them that you're kind of committed to their account beyond your set responsibilities. So whether that be seeing something that's relevant for them and um, sending them a quick note to say, oh, I've seen this set, this was launched, and these are the various different ways that this can be applicable to you, or something that's more kind of uh, just from like an industry perspective as well. If there's any shifts or changes, trying to keep abreast with news and things going on in ways in which you can essentially um, yeah, kind of adapt it to this basically that customized approach, having things be as customized and personable as possible.
Yeah, yeah. So I think one way to kind of bucket that stuff is basically being proactive with your customers, right? Anticipating needs or looking at your product roadmap, making sure that they're aware of new features that are coming out, how it actually benefits their business specifically, right? It's not just some general newsletter you send out to all your clients. I think on top of that could be whenever you are working with your customers, or if you're taking over net new, you can kind of figure it out or ask them like, hey, what are some of the problems that your last CSM or AE was not able to help you address? And then if you're able to be that person that can solve something that they've always wanted fixed, that's a way to quickly build trust. Now, another way to build trust, which you don't have hope happens all the time, is like if there is like a really big mistake, and then you're able to help navigate that and provide a very positive resolution for your customer. That's another way to like quickly build trust as well. But yeah, I think something will fall into any of those three categories. And that's kind of like a different and unique approach, as opposed to just like being like, hey, I'm your CSM, like let me know if you need anything. We'll schedule some trainings for you. Like, good luck. Please renew.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so all right, excellent. Well, everyone, please give us a huge round of applause. It's probably like close to 2 a.m. over there, and so we want to thank you for providing both entertainment and learning purposes. And if anyone else wants to volunteer, make sure you contact Albert. Back to you.
All right. So many thanks for both of you for taking part in this. If you're watching and you want to be a part of this future one, please reach out at albert@ajobslist.com. Send your job description and a resume that we can interview you for. We got plenty of other events coming up. Please join us. They're all on our Eventbrite page, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your week. Bye bye.